Hi everyone, Kelly here. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about email etiquette for professionals. In this presentation, we want to talk a little bit about the functions and basics of professional emailing. We want to talk a little bit about what I call the 10 commandments for how to email effectively and efficiently, and maybe tell a few stories in between. So we're going to start here from our basic inbox. Now I'm using an Outlook inbox. You may be used to Google or Yahoo or something else like that, but I'm sticking with the Outlook inbox because in most places of business, this is what we run into. So we have a to field, a CC field. Tucked over here is the BCC field. I want to talk a little bit about how we want to use that. We have a subject line, a body, and a signature. Now, starting with the to field. In the to field, if you're sending an email, it should be because you need an action performed by the recipient of this email. Every email should have a purpose. Similarly, I believe that you should use your inbox as a to-do list. Now, you might be one of those people who has thousands of emails in your inbox. You may be like me, where you maybe have 5, maybe 10 emails in your inbox at a time. I prefer personally to keep 5 to 10 emails in my inbox at a time because I do see each of the items as something on my to-do list. And once I'm done with it, I'm going to file it away. Never going to delete it. If you don't have it in writing, it didn't happen. So we're going to save everything, but I'm going to file it away and help to minimize the junk so that I see what needs to be done. So in that to field again, should be the recipient of the email, and you should be asking that person to perform an action. Now, it might be that you're sending that person a quick thank you message. That would be acceptable, though I have seen people get very upset at getting thank yous. They get bombarded by emails all the time. They get very upset when they get thank yous, and they will send you a nasty email asking not to receive thank yous anymore. That is rare and not a strategy that I would recommend. I would recommend not saying anything at all. Same thing with those people who reply all to tell everyone not to reply all. Best to just keep silent than to respond in a less than professional way. I'll talk about that one in a moment. Now, your CC field. This stands for carbon copy, and it is an old term from the 80s when we didn't have copy machines readily available. You would write something on a piece of paper. Underneath that would be carbon paper, carbon copy, and it would take the thing that you wrote on the top coat and project it onto multiple pieces of paper. It's an old term. It's an old idea. It's not one that we really use anymore, but we do still use it in business correspondence. And the way that you want to use the CC field is to maintain the chain of command. And what I mean by chain of command, let's say that I want to send someone on my team, an equal, or someone on another team, still maybe an equal, a request. Because I'm sending a request, I'm sending an action item. So I'm going to request that to that person. Let's say I need to send an email to Nancy at myteam.com. I want to then also bring our boss into the loop. Our boss at myteam.com. Now, my boss receives that CC email, and they know that since they're in the CC, they don't need to do anything with this email, but it's for them to know that I sent this to Nancy, that I've requested something of her, and that she may be responding to me. She might reply all to keep our boss in the loop. In certain businesses and certain organizations, especially say the big 3 or the military, chain of command is everything. So you're not going to request something of someone else without looping the chain of command in. You may actually have several people on the CC These are people who need to know, but they know since they're in the CC and not in the to field that no action item is being requested of them. This is something too where I've seen some shenanigans in the workplace. I've seen where, let's say that I've emailed my boss and they then emailed it to their boss, and then the reply ended up taking their name off of it. That is a big red flag. Organizations that don't maintain a strict chain of command, that don't follow it and don't respect it, are organizations to really, really be careful of out there in the workforce, folks. Chain of command is usually formal. It's usually for a reason, and it's usually also very protective. Now, there's another field that you may run into, and that's the BCC field. That's the blind carbon copy. We're going to use this for two purposes. The first and most important purpose is to protect the confidentiality of the people to whom we're emailing. So let's say that I wanted to email all of you, all of my class. I'm not going to put all of your email addresses in the to field where you can see everyone's email addresses. I want to protect your confidentiality. I want to protect your email address. So I'm going to put everyone in the BCC field so that people can't scroll through and look at the list of people's emails on the chain. This is going to, number one, protect people's privacy, not just from looky-loos, but also people will sell the emails on the BCC chain, and that can be something that is not honest and, of course, pesky, right? We don't need more spam email in our lives. The second biggest reason I'm going to use the BCC is if I'm emailing a group. Let's say that I'm emailing a group, all of you as classmates, but let's say I was emailing a bunch of customers. I wanted to keep them private. Let's say I was emailing a bunch of employees, and everyone who works for the company has access to everybody's email address. But when I put everyone in the BCC, no one can reply all. That's a big deal, folks. Any of us who've worked for larger organizations know that a reply all, and this usually it's not this arrow, it's a double arrow, is absolutely horrible. Think of the worst group chat you've ever been on, and then imagine that took place at work. That's what it is. It turns an email that had some basic information into a horrible group chat. You have people who are responding all with just nasty comments, bad typos. You're like, who are these people that I work with? And then there are the heroes who reply all to tell everybody not to reply all. But like, are you going to be part of the problem or part of the solution? So any opportunity to prevent people from replying all, you want to take that. So you want to put everybody in the BCC and then just email yourself. So like you'll notice if you get emails from me in our class, I'll have my name and it will look like the email that you got from me is to me and from me, and you won't see everyone else's emails are private. Then you can reply to me and I will answer you, but not everyone in the group is going to be privy to that information. So we're going to use the BCC to protect people's privacy and also to prevent reply all. Now, I have very rarely been able to use the BCC for office politics. And this is a story. It was in a union shop, and I was just trying to do my job, and I would email my boss over and over and over. And this was, I was in purchasing. So I found that in purchasing, I could save a bunch of money by switching from one vendor to another. So I talked to my boss and he said, okay, you know, we were a government shop too. So had to follow correct procedure, had to take bids, had to get buy-in from all the stakeholders. I had to go do all of this due diligence, and I did it all. And at the end of it, I found that I could save $10,000 a year. So I kept emailing my boss, and this guy was the most unpleasant person to work for. He would spy on people, and he would cross his arms and chew gum, and just, he was just the most unpleasant individual. And when I say this, I am not exaggerating. People on 2 separate occasions threatened to come in and shoot us because of how he acted. So again, not exaggerating. It was extraordinary. So I kept asking him, like, okay, well, can I make this switch? Can I save this money? If the, layoffs were coming, we were really worried about it. And he was just like, no, 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 wouldn't answer me. So finally, after 3 requests in writing, following the chain of command, I went above his head. And I went and sat in with the big boss, the supervisor. And I said, hey, I said, I'm just trying to do my job here. And I'm trying to save us this money, and I don't understand what the problem is. And so my boss's boss was a little more understanding, said, why don't you just send him one more email and BCC me on this. Let me know what's going on. So I sent the whole chain of emails where I had said, this is the due diligence. I followed the chain of command. I followed the steps. I did all these things. Can I go ahead and make this change? And then I BCC'd his boss. So that means when I emailed my boss, he didn't know that his own boss was also on the email. 10 minutes later, my boss, the unpleasant gentleman, was on the phone cussing me out. And I said, I don't have to take this. And of course it's on the phone. It's not in writing. It didn't happen. So I hang up. And less than 10 days later, they allow me to make the change. I save the money, and they give me a totally different boss. They took that boss out from on top of me, gave me the good boss, and I got to move on with my life. So it was bizarre. It was shenanigans. It was office politics using that BCC. But ultimately, by looping him in and proving with everything in writing, step by step by step, I ended up prevailing. So hopefully that story reflects the importance of chain of command, the importance of keeping things in writing, and every once in a while, you can use the BCC and shenanigans. Now, I should also say I've seen the people use it unsuccessfully, where, let's say, Nancy was gossiping about Sheila, and Sheila replied to Nancy and then BCC'd Debbie because that's who she was gossiping about on the email. We're not going to do that, folks. We're not going to use email to gossip or anything like that. But when used effectively, our to-do list, having things in writing, can be absolutely impactful. Other things that I've seen people misuse email for, I've seen people not write effective emails. Shout out to ChatGPT, just use that from now on. But not get promoted, not get opportunities because they didn't know how to use email effectively. I've also seen several people get sued because they sent racist or otherwise insensitive emails. Those emails all get printed off by the people who are offended, and they have been used many times in lawsuits. So I would caution anyone to really think about how you're using your email, really think about using it effectively. When using it effectively, this can be the most powerful tool you have in the office. So that's the to field, the CC field, and the BCC. Now in the subject line, your subject line should be specific. It should state exactly what action you need performed in that subject. So maybe it's going to be reminder, meeting Wednesday at 6, agenda attached, something like that. Should be something very specific. Maybe it could be something new TPS reports, something like that. Or, and I have seen this as well, if your message is going to be so short, you could put your entire email in the message. You could say, want to have lunch Wednesday at 3. And you could just put the entire thing in the subject line, and that's something that someone is going to be able to see very quickly. Remember that these are your to-do list, and they are the to-do list of the person receiving them. So if you can help simplify that to-do list by making it very quick and easy, then that would be ideal. Now, in the body right here, that is where you want to put the to-do. And we've got some commandments. I'm going to follow up with those here in a moment. But the most important thing, folks, is keep it short and sweet and to the point. Do not go on and on and on. You may be accustomed to an academic level paragraph, which is like 3 to 5 sentences. In business writing, a paragraph is 1 to 2 sentences. People don't read. They don't want to read. They're not going to read your email. So you want to keep it to just a few sentences and done. And that's it. If you have to add more, you might want to use bullet points. In professional writing, the big difference between professional writing and academic writing is that we go from most important to least important. Now, in academic writing, we go from least important to most important. We build a case. We start with definitions and history, and we build from smallest to largest. But in professional writing, you only want to leave them the most important, and you leave out all the rest. Again, no one wants to read. So you want to keep it very, very short, very sweet, very simple, to the point. That is one thing that I think ChatGPT doesn't quite do as well as, say, a real person, is it writes really great emails, but they're usually about twice as long as they need to be. So I do recommend keeping your emails to 1 to 2 sentences a paragraph, maybe 3 paragraphs, maybe some bullet points, but do keep it really short and sweet. Finally, in the anatomy of an email, I've included a signature line. This is something that you can set up in your email client to automatically add to the bottom of all of your emails. You want to go with something that's generally professional. I like warm wishes, but there are many ways to set this up. And you want to keep it pretty short and sweet and simple. And please, folks, double check the spelling and the punctuation of your signature line. Now, traditional letter writing has us capitalizing the first letter, but not any letter after, following by a comma, and then the full name. I'm going to tell a quick war story here. I work at a lot of schools, and I have a lot of bosses. And at one of the schools that I was at, we had a new boss, new flavor of the week come in. And I was wondering to myself, should I try to introduce myself to this person? Do I want to try to make a good impression? Do I want to try to network with this person and form a like mentor-mentee relationship? Now, some of my bosses I have really amazing relationships with. Some of them I've never even met them. So I had to kind of decide where I wanted to fall with this new person, and I get many new people. And then she started sending out emails. And she had set up her signature, and she had spelled her own name wrong. She had spelled her own name wrong. The director of the English department had spelled her own name wrong in her signature line. Now I'm thinking to myself, yikes, this is probably not someone I want to get to know. Let me just see how long it lasts. For 6 months. 6 months, at least once a week, I got an email from this individual with her name spelled wrong in the signature line, the director of the English department, and then she fixed it, and then a month later she was gone. So I was relieved that I didn't even bother to form a relationship with this person who was long gone, but these can say a lot about a person, these signature lines. They should be professional. They should be clean. They don't want to be overly complicated. I do sometimes see people add a little flourish with like a quote from a famous person. I think that's okay. Oftentimes you'll see a confidentiality notice that is from the organization that person is sending, but you don't want it to be too much. You don't want it to be too complicated. And you might not want to attach it to every single email. Like, it looks good on emails going out, but if you're in a rapid fire back and forth conversation with someone, it's not always the best look to have this signature at the bottom of every single email. So just something to think about. You'll also see the generational divide in these signatures. Older generations, your baby boomers might have a sincerely, some of the best regards, some of the more classic signatures. Your Gen Xers and millennials might mix it up a little bit, maybe say a warm wishes or something like that. Gen Z is really changing up signature lines a lot. And they're saying things like hasta la pasta or see you when I see ya. This is, I think, fun, but the older generations really don't think so, folks. So I would choose something that's kind of on the spectrum between really old and formal, like sincerely, and maybe something that's not as informal as hasta la pasta, and kind of try to choose a middle ground. That's where I've got my warm wishes. I also used to have warm regards. Since we're in Michigan, it's always cold here. So that's warm wishes is something that I genuinely wish on people. So that's our anatomy of our email. To-do list. 2 is for the actions. Whoever needs to do the action. The subject is what the action is. Sometimes we use the CC and the BCC for office politics, chain of command, protecting people's privacy, etc. We want to keep our body short and sweet, and we want to keep our signature professional, a little bit fun, and it's just easier to have that there than to have to sign every single email. All right, let's take a look at the 10 commandments. These are thou shalt not. I've got Harold here, of course, my friend. Some of you, if you enjoy meme culture as I do, you know him. Thou shalt not yell. All capital letters is the international sign for yelling. So please, folks, do not type in all capital letters. That recipient is going to think, why are they yelling at me? It is a do not do. Now, there are some organizations I've seen in the military where using all caps is the standard, but do not do that in an email. Do not yell. This is the same for text messaging. A lot of these rules are going to apply. Thou shalt not type angry. This is also a really big no-no. You know, you might think that your words are pretty bland, but if you're angry while you're typing them, that anger, that emotion bleeds through to the other side. Think about a time when you've been in, say, a group text or a text message exchange with someone and you were angry. It doesn't matter if you say the right words. If you say them with venom behind them, that venom is going to sink through. I like to say you have 24 to 48 hours to respond to any email. And so if you feel that you're angry, don't send it. Take a lap, save it as a draft if you need to, walk away, or better yet, pick up the phone and call that person. Because if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. And if you talk to someone to their face or over the phone, they don't have a record of it, then it didn't happen. And you can be as angry as you need to be. You're less likely to get sued. So do not type angry. Thou shalt not send large attachments without invitation. Now, this more or less harkens back to the days when in the very beginning of emailing, we would have like a 1 megabyte limit on sending an email, which today is crazy. I just opened a 12 gigabyte email just today. But in the beginning of the internet, especially when we're all on dial-up, you couldn't send large attachments. They would never get to their end destination. But I would say this is even still true today. You don't want to send large attachments without an invitation because you want that person to expect that it's coming. And you don't want to send large amounts of information or data without that person actually requesting them. I'll tell another quick war story here. This is back in the government, and I worked with an individual who took impeccable care to document everything. And she documented every single bit of her day. It was all in work orders, all processed. Every hour of her day was documented and filled up with what she did. So we had an incident. This is at the water and sewer department. or a bunch of sewage backed up into someone's house, which means no bueno. This is not good. You don't want sewer, the stuff that goes down the shower drains and the toilets, to back up into your house. Someone's house got flooded, and they were trying to figure out what happened. So they asked her what happened, and she sent impeccable documentation back with like drawings and figures and all this stuff. But basically it said, January 30th, I told my boss that the battery at the sewer lift station was going out and that he had to replace the battery. I wasn't allowed to order that battery. February 16th, emailed him again, email attached. Hey, how are we doing on getting that battery? That battery is about to go out. I need a status update. March 13th, sent a follow-up email. Where are we at on that battery? April 14th, sewer overflows. You may be thinking to yourself, it was clearly the supervisor's fault. The employee had spotless documentation that showed that she tried to get the battery ordered, that she brought it to his attention 4 times. She had to email the documentation, all of that, to say this, hey, we need this so that this, crisis doesn't happen. She got written up for insubordination. She had documented the situation so well that it pointed blame clearly at her supervisor, and her supervisor didn't like that. So he wrote her up for insubordination, and there was no one she could answer to. It was absolutely ridiculous. So you should save all your documentation. You should have it all lined up, but don't send it. Hold on to it. Keep it until you need it. In her case, it would have been better to wait until she had been disciplined, and then she could put it in front of the union, and then the union could have fought for her. But instead, she just ended up with a write-up on her record, and didn't even have an opportunity to fight it. So really be careful with large attachments. They might not get where they're supposed to go. The person might not be expecting them. They might not know to look for them. They might not know what to do with them. And sometimes being too good is too good, and it can hurt you. Thou shalt not fail to proofread twice. Now, this is, folks, I have a PhD. I'm a doctor. I have a master's in English literature. I teach writing. I know all 14 places where commas go. I make a mistake when I'm writing an email every single time. Every time, every email. I write dozens of emails every single day. I make mistakes in every single one of those emails. So I always say, make sure you proofread twice before you hit the send button. This is especially important if you work in a really busy environment, because you'll type an email, then you'll take a phone call, and you'll get distracted, and you'll be like, was I done? I was probably done. And you'll hit send, and then you'll end up looking foolish if there's a lot of really bad typos. So my rule is proofread once, okay? Proofread twice, okay? Then send. Thou shalt not use emojis or text speak. Now this one, we'll call this a soft commandment, and here's why. Research has shown that when a team has really good unity, like they're really functioning well together as a team, emojis and text speak actually enhance the relationship of the team. And that's usually people who are on the same level, like they work together. But when emojis or text speak are used in cases where there's a lot of stratification, right, between, say, a boss and an employee, then those emojis work poorly against the communication. So like if I work with Harold here, and Harold's my homie, right? Harold and I can send emojis to each other all day, and gifts and all kinds of other fun stuff, and it just makes me and Harold closer, and like that's my work brother, like Harold's my dude. But let's say Harold is my boss, and I'm like, Harold's a chump. I don't like him. He always asks me to do stupid stuff that he wouldn't do himself. I'm not a fan. If that guy sends me an emoji, I'm like, who does he think he is? Like, what am I that he's going to send me a smiley face? I don't think so. And then I'm going to resent him for that. So if you're going to use emojis or text speak, you have to know that you have a really good relationship with the people that you're sending those to. But if there's a disconnect, then it causes problems. Now, there was this really great study that asked a bunch of supervisors and their direct reports how effective the supervisors were in communicating. And the supervisors all gave themselves 8, 9s, and 10s. They all said that they were really great communicators with their direct reports. And what did their direct reports give them? 4s. Supervisors often tend to think that they are much better communicators than they are. And so I would be especially wary if in a supervisory position, not to send emojis or text speak or slang and to keep things more formal, because it could be causing a lot of extra resentment that you're just not necessarily aware of. All right, the rest of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not make jokes. Don't do it, folks. Humor does not translate in email. It does not translate in business email. Yes, I do think a funny meme or a funny GIF, you'll see that I'm using them, can be amusing. But in general, jokes are not funny. They will be taken wrong and they will be used against you in a court of law. One of my favorite examples of this was I was standing around talking with someone on a break, and we worked in different departments, and we were telling jokes to each other, and we were just joking around, laughing. It was totally innocent. We went back to our desks after break, and I sent him an email about something, and I added like a callback to what we had just been joking about, and I ended up in the boss's office and in trouble for it. So and I don't even remember what it was, but it was harmless. It was not anything. But as soon as it was in writing, it wasn't funny anymore. As soon as I wasn't there to have, say, my facial expressions or my tone of voice represent myself, then it just wasn't there. I strongly recommend against any jokes other than maybe a good dad joke, right? Something that's just absolutely silly. Thou shalt not email about sensitive matters. Don't do it, folks. If it is a sensitive matter, it requires a personal touch. Pick up the phone, go talk to that person, have a meeting about it. Email is not the place for sensitive matters. Maybe you might need documentation, but an email should not resolve it. Something that I've already mentioned, thou shalt not email more than one action item. I'm going to call back to it. When you're sending an email, it should be about one action item and one action item alone. Remember, people are not going to read your emails. So after 1 or 2 sentences, they're done. You don't want to send an email asking someone about 3 different things. They're only going to answer the first one and the other 2 will get ignored, and then you'll be back to the drawing board. So if you have 3 action items, send 3 separate emails. This is something that maybe you've experienced when emailing a professor. Maybe you've sent a professor 3 questions. They answered the first question, and then that was it. They didn't answer the other 2 questions. I try not to be guilty of that myself, but it certainly happens. So only email 1 action item at a time, and that would be the best way to do it. Thou shalt not ramble on and on and on and on and on and on. Again, 1 or 2 sentences per paragraph, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs. That's it. And thou shalt not forget that a reasonable expectation of privacy is that you have none. Your email client, the contents of your email, what you do at work, those things do not belong to you. That time does not belong to you. That technology does not belong to you. You have no reasonable expectation of privacy. Don't open your personal email at work. Don't open your personal email on the company cell phone. Don't do it. Keep your personal and your business and your professional life separate. Now, some companies don't search those things, and some companies know way more about you than they should. You have no reasonable expectation of privacy and no prevention of search and seizure from your company when they're looking at your stuff. You should also remember that they have the right to delete contents off of the client, and so that might happen as well. Print off the emails you need to print off. So last but not least, I want to do just a quick little demo on using ChatGPT to write great emails. So you can use https://chat.openai.com to access ChatGPT, and it will make writing professional emails a breeze. So let's do a couple quick examples and I will show you what I mean. This is our basic ChatGPT interface. And if I move too quick or you didn't pause it again, here's that URL. And we are going to use this to write some quick emails. So let's say I need to write an email, a short email to Professor Brindell asking for an extension on my term paper in composition 2. It's gonna write my email for me. Now, this is way too long, folks. Again, people don't necessarily read, but I might just include, say, this amount here and call it good and hit send. Now, I will say if you're emailing an instructor, unforeseen personal circumstances is enough. I'm not going to probe. Me personally, I'm not going to be like, well, give me all the deets. Let me know exactly what's going on. But if you can give us an idea of if something is going on, like a larger emergency, or it's a family emergency, or if you are sick, we certainly do appreciate that. So you can also include that. You can say, I need to write a 3-sentence email to my professor telling her, I'm going to make a typo here. I'm out sick today. I'm going to put in a couple typos because it doesn't matter, folks. It's going to clean them up. So if you do struggle with grammar, or if, say, English is not your first language, then using ChatGPT, asking it to write 3 sentences, and even having typos, you're still going to end up getting a really professional email. So I do recommend maybe limiting it, say, give me only 3 sentences, and don't worry about typos. It's going to fix it for you. Let's say we need to do any formal letter writing. I need to write a 3-sentence 2-week notice. Again, I'm adding typos because I don't care. 2-week notice to my boss. It's been great, but I got a new job. And of course, I'm going to remember to fill in the brackets, dear boss's name. There it is, 2-week notice. You can be using ChatGPT to write your professional letters and professional emails and professional correspondence. It is going to fix up any typos or grammar issues. It is going to produce something that is high quality. My biggest recommendation is really to tell it to keep it short and sweet. Otherwise, you might end up with a really long email like, this is way too much, and you want to keep it short and sweet and to the point. That is the goal with all business and professional correspondence, is you want it to be very readable, very quick, very easy. So I hope that today's presentation has been helpful in not just shedding some light on professional emailing, but professional correspondence in general. Of course, if you have any questions at all, shoot me an email, and otherwise, have a great day.